In this brief video, we'll cover Carl Jung, including his primary philosophical concept he called the collective unconscious, some criticisms of it, and lastly share some perspective on where Jung's thought fits into the larger landscape. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who is widely considered one of the most influential figures in the field of psychology. He worked closely with Freud at the beginning of the 20th century. Freud thought of Jung like a son who would carry the psychoanalytic movement's torch when Freud passed, and Jung may have achieved that, but not in the way Freud would have liked. Freud was tied to his own sexual instinct theory, which Jung eventually dissented from. For Jung, the unconscious motivations of humanity didn't stem from a sexual instinct, but a much deeper concept he called the collective unconscious. Jung is perhaps best known for this theory. He believed we all share a collective unconscious, a repository of archetypal images, symbols, and experiences. Opposed to the sexual instinct of Freud, the collective unconscious is much more varied and nuanced. In a way, it's deeper than the sexual instinct. Where the sexual instinct theory is a heavy weight from time immemorial, from the first emergence of humans out of primate ancestors, of primal crimes committed in the dim recesses of prehistory, the collective unconscious is more human. It transcends the sexual instinct theory by giving humanity breadth and depth of images, symbols, and experience that explain the human condition. Jung called these symbols archetypes. Some examples of Jung's archetypes are as follows. The self. The self is the central archetype that represents the integration and wholeness of the personality. The shadow. The shadow represents the unconscious aspects of the personality that are repressed or denied. The anima/animus. The anima is the feminine aspect of a man's personality, while the animus is the masculine aspect of a woman's personality. The persona. The persona represents the social mask or facade that an individual presents to the world. The hero. The hero archetype represents the universal human drive to achieve greatness and overcome obstacles. The wise old man. The wise old man represents wisdom, knowledge, and experience. The trickster. The trickster archetype represents mischief, creativity, and disruption. The mother. The mother archetype represents nurturing, caring, and unconditional love. The child. The child archetype represents innocence, wonder, and potential. The lover. The lover archetype represents the universal human desire for romantic love and connection. It's important to note that these archetypes are not exhaustive or fixed categories, but rather fluid and evolving patterns of human experience. Jung believed that each individual has a unique set of archetypes that are shaped by their personal experiences and cultural background. Jung prompted the person to use these archetypes as a framework for the individuation process. Individuation refers to the process of integrating and reconciling the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche, like the shadow, the anima, animus, the persona, etc., to create a more complete and authentic sense of self. In other words, it's a process of becoming more aware of who you are, what you want, and what drives you. The individuation process typically begins with an experience of psychological disintegration, such as a crisis, illness, major life change, or psychedelic experience, which triggers a need for greater self-awareness and personal growth. From there, individuals must work to confront and integrate various aspects of the self, including those that are often repressed or denied. Through this process, individuals can gain greater self-awareness, creativity, and spiritual fulfillment. Some dissatisfaction and criticism of Jung, as Philip Rieff has so compellingly argued, must stem largely from the impossibility of achieving the psychological redemption of psychological man. That is to say, psychoanalysis is useful to free somebody up from their superficial neuroticisms, but once those outer layers are unrepressed and peeled away, psychoanalysis leaves a person staring into an existential void. In a way, psychoanalysis fixes the problem of neurotic guilt that stems from life experiences, trauma, bad parents, etc., but leaves the patient with deeper and unsolvable existential guilt, the guilt we all feel as a result of being out of place in nature and aware of our own finitude. Jung's system represents in part a reaction to this limitation of psychological analysis. For one thing, he revitalized the inner dimensions of the psyche to secure it against the self-defeating analytic breakdown of it. For another thing, he broadened the psyche beyond its individual base by turning it into a collective unconscious. No matter what the individual did to his psyche, he was transcended as an individual by it. In these two ways, the person could get his heroic justification from within his own psyche, even by analyzing it. In fact, especially by analyzing it. In this way, Jung's system is an attempt to have the advantages of psychological analysis and to negate and transcend them at the same time, to have his cake and eat it too. Jung can be said to have a scientific-oriented closure on psychology. Whereas other notable psychologists and philosophers of the past, such as Kierkegaard and Otto Rank, saw psychology ending with religion, Jung saw empirically based commonalities, the collective unconscious, as the end. When spirituality and religion are incorporated into archetypes of a collective unconscious, the greatest beyond is not in the cosmos, but inside all of us, if we were only to look. Overall, while Jung's approach to psychology and religion can be seen as intertwining these two domains of human experience, it is important to recognize that he did so in a thoughtful and nuanced way that respected the principles of scientific inquiry and critical thinking. We still thrill to Jung because he asks us to go deeper, to see ourselves in the collective unconscious, to relate to the archetypes, to not yield to overwhelmingness or throw our hands up to the heavens for salvation, but to find absolution within the human condition itself. What do you think? Do you think Jung's attempt to create a beyond deep within a collective unconscious works for you? Do you relate to one archetype more than another? With this archetypal knowledge, could you live a more examined life? Comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to start a community of philosophically minded people, and that starts with you liking and subscribing. Thank you and have a wonderful day or night or evening or wherever in the solar cycle you happen to be.